Hello, no, don't adjust your set. This is AutoEV, and yes, I am on a bike. But this is Brompton. Now, if you're not familiar with Bromptons, they are a commuter's dream. Basically, they're a folding bike, which allows you to take them on the tube, in the back of taxis, or on buses. Of course, there are better bikes if you were doing something like, I don't know, going up and down the Yorkshire Dales, or throwing yourself down a muddy forest track, or competing in a Tour de France. But for the cut and thrust of inner city work, they are absolutely fantastic. A little bit like the smart ForTwo EQ from Mercedes-Benz. Except you can't take it on the tube, or a bus, or put it underneath your desk at work. But you get the idea. We need to talk about smart. Now, smart, since its inception, has always led a little bit of a troubled existence. The original idea behind the smart car was from Swatch Group, yes, the people that make the watches. Their then CEO, Nicholas Hayek, wanted to build a small hybrid commuter car, and so got in touch with Volkswagen Group at the time and put a plan in place. However, Volkswagen's then new CEO decided it wasn't for them. Obviously, much to the annoyance of Hayek, he now needed to find a new partner. And it wasn't until he knocked on the door of Daimler-Benz that he found one. Much to Hayek's annoyance, when the car was actually launched, it was launched as a conventional piston-engined car. And then between the years 2003 and 2006, Smart as a company lost €4 billion. At that point, Daimler-Benz had really had enough, and they liquidated the Smart company and absorbed it straight into the arms of Mercedes-Benz, their passenger car outlet. Since then, Smart has come in various different iterations. It's come as a coupe, a small roadster. They even did a 4x4 originally that was teamed up with the Mitsubishi Colt. But then the third generation car, which we have here, was launched in 2016, and those cars were put by the wayside, except for a new 4x4, which was teamed up with the Renault Twingo. Mercedes has now ditched the conventional piston engine cars and relaunched Smart again under their EQ brand as an electric vehicle only manufacturer. And it's this car in ForTwo, guys, that we have here today. Since the third generation car was launched in 2016, not really a lot's changed. There's some new Mercedes-Benz EQ branding. There's a body coloured grille at the front, which differs slightly depending whether you have a 4x4 or a 4x2. There's some nice alloy wheel choices and LED daytime running lights at the front, and a new rear light design. And of course, the car still has its distinctive option of the Tridian contrast safety cell around the outside. You know, the Smart's always been a little bit weird in making you feel that you're in a bigger car than you actually are. I mean, here in the two seats, it's sort of super mini sized, albeit one that sits slightly higher up. It's only really when you turn round that you see how close you are to the back window. Now, it might seem a bit silly to talk about practicality in a car that's only 2.7 metres long. Now, to put that into perspective, that's a whole metre shorter than a Mini Electric. However, for two people, there is actually a reasonable size inside the car. In the boot here, you've got quite enough for some soft luggage, or, if need be, your Brompton. And for added practicality, you can also fold down the front passenger seat. And it's not what you'd call exactly Spartan in here. I mean, this is the Prime Exclusive model, and I've got leather seats which are heated, I've got ISOFIX, I've got touchscreen infotainment system that includes Android Auto and MirrorLink and then Bluetooth. We've got climate control, we've got leather steering wheel with multifunction buttons on it, cruise control, electric mirrors, and a big glass panoramic sunroof. Said the car comes as standard with Android Auto, but not Apple CarPlay. It's MirrorLink you get with this car. But with Android Auto, obviously all your apps are here, including Waze for navigation, Spotify for music, Google Maps, and then obviously the Smart app itself. The Smart comes with a 17.2 kilowatt hour battery. Now, according to WLTP figures, that should give a range of between 74 to 84 miles. In reality, in colder months, that's probably going to drop to between 50 and 60. Admittedly, not huge, but probably just enough for some for a few days worth of commuting. The Smart will accept charge at up to 22 kilowatts. So 10 to 80% charge can be achieved in about 40 minutes from a rapid charger. From a 7 kilowatt home charger, it's going to be just over 3.5 hours. There's no CCS charging available for the Smart, but with a battery this small, it isn't really necessary. The Smart develops a notch chuff over 80 brake horsepower, so it's fair to say it isn't going to be blindingly fast. And not to 60 as well, we won't talk about that, but not to 30, which is a really important factor when you're talking about inner city cars. It's really quick, it really picks up its guts and gets there really quite easily. And that again is something like that with the manoeuvrability of the Smart. I mean, the turning circle, it can almost just turn on its own length. I mean, it's sensational. And that's always been the key to the Smart. It's just the way that it just darts in and out of the urban environment so well. And now, of course, they've got rid of the Achilles heel with the Smarts, which was that horrible old automated manual gearbox with now a single drive unit. What's not to love in the middle of town? I mean, it's just so easy to drive. You just bring the lever back into drive and you go. The downside again is ride quality. Of course, that's going to be down to having a short wheelbase. I mean, the car is, as I say, 2.7 metres long, so a short wheelbase car is going to feel really, really choppy in its ride quality. And it's things like speed bumps that really catch you out. I mean, it hops over them like a drunken kangaroo, which is a bit ironic that something designed for the urban area is caught out by something designed for the urban area. But there you go, that's what we have. Other than that, the car's actually really pleasant to drive, even out on these open country roads that we're on today. It keeps up with other traffic as you'd expect, and there's a real squeeze the throttle, and actually that instantaneous torque is there, and it just pushes itself along quite well. There's a lot of road noise from the car, but again, that's because the wheels are really tight into the cabin and you can hear it. And of course, with no engine thrumming away, as we've always said with these cars, with electric cars, it brings into context all the other noises that you're going to hear from them, such as wind noise and road noise. Here, it's road noise without shadow of a doubt. The steering's nice, though. I really like the steering. As I say, it's so manoeuvrable, but even out on the open road, it has a nice weight to it, and the wheel itself is quite nice and easy to hold. There's adjustment on the driver's seat for height, which is good, and you also get height adjustment on the steering wheel, so actually finding a reasonably nice driving position is quite easy. The pedals, okay, it's a tight little footwell, but you've only 2 pedals to worry about. Now, going on from that, obviously brake regeneration is a thing with electric cars, but there isn't any in the Smart, and that's a little bit of a shame. I'd like to have seen maybe a little bit of brake regeneration just to add to its sort of like je ne sais quoi within the city, but there we go, it doesn't have it. But other than that, it's got good visibility out of it. You can see right out the back. The wing mirrors are nicely placed in the car, and because it's early, you sit a little bit higher in the car, it's very, very easy to place the car, and that's not just in parking, that's for actually out on the road as well. The only time you're really caught out with that, I suppose, is if you were doing something like those faster air roads and motorways, obviously with bigger trucks and lorries and buses. They make themselves known to you in the little car, which is just par for the course with anything of this sort of size. But on the whole, the performance is really, really good enough for the car. As I say, certainly squeezing up through sort of like the city streets, it's going to be a really good little car. The seats themselves are very comfortable too. I mean, again, as I say, you've got height adjustment, there's good padding in them, there's some nice under thigh support. They've got this moulded one-piece head restraint that a lot of cars have now, but there's nice support with them. They're heated in this model, which is nice too. As I say, with adjustment on the height and the adjustment on the steering wheel, it's easier to get a nice, comfortable driving position. Again, again, it's easy to say, oh, I love these little pods. They've gone back to this sort of stylish, sort of like little kind of funky look in the smart cabin. I think they sort of went away from a little bit. They tried to become a little bit too grown up, in my opinion. They need to have a little bit of fun in here, and they've done that. These big eyeball vents staring out here, this little charge gauge up here, the screen sticks out, everything's a nice kind of circular kind of feel to it. Just looks really nice. There's a nice material finish on the dashboard as well, which is good too. Just always a bit different. I like having different materials in cars rather than just the ubiquitous plastic and black leather. It's nice to see people using something a little bit different, and they have, and that's good. There's enough cup holders in here as well. We've got two in the front here, there's one at the back. There's a little tray for the mobile here, and there's a USB port back here that obviously you can pop your phone into to get charged up. So again, it's usable enough. Now you really need to think about the Smart as being more of a lifestyle choice when it comes to price, because this isn't a cheap little car. This one that we have here today is £19,430, and that's after the government grant. So it's right up there with the Volkswagen Group triplets. You can get the Smart, of course, slightly cheaper, but even then it's still not exactly a bargain, and you can go more expensive if you want to go for either the convertible or the higher spec Edition 1 model. If we'd had the Smart 4.4 here today, then it would be very easy to list the competition. Things like the Volkswagen Up and the Skoda Citigo and the Seat Mii. But there isn't really a direct competitor for the little 4.2, and because it's more of a lifestyle choice, you're probably looking at cars like the Mini Electric, the Honda E and the forthcoming Fiat 500, albeit at a much higher cost. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the Smart EQ 4.2. We like how well it drives as an EV. For two people, the cabin feels quite spacious and comfortable. Its ease of use and compact size for town driving. You can have it as a cabriolet, and it's still everything you love about a smart car. Cool. We don't love the high price, the minuscule range, and the choppy ride. If this had been the Smart 4.4 that we'd had here on test today, it would pretty much have been over before it started. I mean, there's little to really recommend that car when you've got things like the Volkswagen E-Up, Skoda Citigo and Seat Mii around for less money that do double the range, are arguably better looking and drive a little bit better as well. But it's not the 4.4 we've got, it's the genesis of the brand, it's the 4.2, and that changes things slightly. It's like the Brompton that we had at the beginning, it's fit for purpose. Of course there are better bikes to ride, there are better value for money bikes, more comfortable bikes, but going back to what we said, for ease of use and for the daily commute, there's little that can touch them. Ironically, it becomes down to really much a choice of style, and a choice of practicality doesn't even come into it. I mean, after all, why would you spend thousands on a wristwatch when a Swatch does exactly the same job for an awful lot less? No, there is an appeal with the Smart 4.2, and we can see it, and I think for some it will be the answer to an awful lot of things. It, in our opinion, becomes a very limited but very likeable small EV. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon. So, you've watched our video. It's now my job to tell you to like and subscribe, and press the little bell button to receive notification of when our next video is uploaded. Sorry, what's that? You want more than just videos? Okay, did you know that AutoEV is also a website? That's right, autoev.co.uk. Not only is it all the latest news, reviews and musings, including motorsport from the electric vehicle world, but we've got literally hundreds of used electric vehicles for sale from dealers up and down the country.